Hi, everybody. I'm Tanya Autry. I'm the Gun Curatorial Fellow and the curator of the exhibition Temporary Spaces of Joy and Freedom at moCa, Cleveland. And thank you for joining us today. I want to start off with, really an acknowledgement of the moment that we are all in. And so I'd like to open our program with a meditation via poetry. I am so tired of waiting, aren't you? For the world to become good and beautiful and kind. That's an excerpt from Langston Hughes' poem, Tired. And this is from Assata Shakur, story. You died, I cried, and kept on getting up, a little slower and a lot more deadly. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, and all our people. Blessings. I'm on ancestral lands, communities of the Erie, members of the Haudenosaunee, and other Native peoples lived in this area, now known as Cleveland, Ohio. They took care of this land. And of course, Indigenous people continue to live among us. Honoring their presence means that we recognize the various operations of violence that have occurred and continue to happen, which intersect with the forces that keep killing Black people. This honoring also means that we commit to working hard individually and collectively to undo the systems of violence. I'm honored to welcome all of you to moCa Cleveland's digital programming. This evening, artists Vaimoana Niumeitolu and Goen are joining us. Moana and Kyle are two of the brilliant artists I've been learning from through our exhibition, Temporary Spaces of Joy and Freedom. We stand in support of the return of their lands. This is where we must begin, decolonize this place. These are the three last lines of Red Carpet. It's a 30-foot long painted floor cloth, and it issues this very strong call for action. So we're going to be talking about red carpet and just various other things that Moana and Kyle are working with. First, I would like to read their bios and then we'll move on. So Vaimoana Niumeitolu was raised in Hawaii and Utah. She lives and works in New York. She earned her undergraduate degree in painting and performance from New York University. She received the Ellen Battell Stoeckel Fellowship in painting and drawing from Yale University and attended Columbia University's graduate program in acting. A member of Decolonial Cultural Front and Decolonize This Place, Niumeitolu is also a founding member of AKA Exit and Mahina movement, an all-women music and poetry trio. Niumeitolu has written, performed in, and directed numerous theatrical productions at venues including Lincoln Center and Harvard University. She has created 24 community murals across the world in Australia, Kenya, Jordan, New Zealand, Palestine, South Africa, and the United States. She continues to work with youth communities in New York. That's a lot. Woo! It made my throat, I lost my throat a little bit there. And Goen. He lives and works in Maplewood, New Jersey. He is a multidisciplinary artist and founding member of AKA Exit, an art collective that combines research, aesthetics, and action in its practice. Goen is a core member of Direct Action Front for Palestine, Decolonial Cultural Front, and MTL Plus, the collective facilitating Decolonize This Place, an action-oriented movement and decolonial formation that blurs the lines between art and activism around 5 strands of struggle: Indigenous struggle, Black liberation, free Palestine, global wage worker, and de-gentrification. He is also an active member of global ultra-luxury faction, Gulf. So lots of really important, powerful stuff here. So before we get to our conversation, we're going to screen a portion of their video which documents activations of red carpet, and then we're going to come back.
return of their land. This is where we must begin. This is where we must begin. Decolonize this place.
Welcome, welcome, Kyle. Welcome, Moana. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm really good. Thank you.
How are you doing, Kyle?
Say that again?
I said, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, doing fine. I mean, the world outside is crazy as always. And so,
Yeah.
it's a weird time to be doing a live conversation about art, but I think it's all, it all kind of contextualizes what's happening. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you too. And I think the work that you both do is actually really needed in this moment. I hear you about it. A lot of times it feels weird in a way to be talking about art. But I think the work that you do, I think what we're going to be talking about is definitely the kind of stuff we need to be doing for organizing to try to change all of this that's going on. So I guess let's just get to it. I'm really honored to be in conversation with both of you. I mean, I've been so impressed. Like that screening of the video, just that little bit, that was from the Smithsonian, and that's how I came to know both of you. So it just feels really great to actually be in conversation. This is an anniversary of Red Carpet, Memorial Day weekend-ish time. And so 4 years ago was the beginning of Red Carpet, and that's where I came to know you from, walking on that red carpet that we just saw. And so that was out at the Smithsonian, and we'll talk about that. But first, I would think it'd be good to just start with like a grounding. So my first question for each of you is, who are your people? And I mean that in a really broad way. You can answer it however you like. But I always feel like it's just kind of good to get a sense of, who we are.
Well, first of all, I'm so honored, Tanya, to have this conversation with you and Kyle. So a huge shout out to you. And I'm actually zooming in from indigenous Dene land. I'm here in Utah, in Sandy, Utah. So to follow that up, I was born in Tonga, so I'm Tongan. What? And also to answer who are my people, I want to answer just with an acknowledgement to Black people and Black women of this land and throughout the whole entire world. Because who I am today as an artist and as a member of the community, I would not be here seriously in all different ways if it wasn't for the contributions of Black people and Black women. So sending out so much love all over the world to my second mother, Fadawa Ofi, who is a Black Palestinian woman who has taught me so much. And shout out to all the political prisoners who are currently incarcerated and who are free. And it's through those political prisoners, shout out Autry Lutalo, who I met 6 years ago, who was imprisoned for being a Black anarchist and actually an activist, a leader, who was in prison for 28 years and in solitary confinement for 22 years. And he is one of the folks that were in Kyle and I's mural Ngatu Mandala that was also featured the same time as the red carpet in the Smithsonian. And it's through him and all the political prisoners that I have gotten not only my education through just international solidarity education, but the love and the commitment and the fortitude that it takes to be alive in this country today and on this planet. So I have to give a shout out to all of them. And that said, free the land, free the people, all right? Shout out from Utah, okay.
That's beautiful.
That's great. So to your question, who are my people? My people are poor and working poor people. It's who I come from. My people are in the streets in Minneapolis. It's who I organize with in New York City. I echo some of what Moana just said around her acknowledgement of Black women and the contributions that they've contributed to my life. As a young person, reading and art that I was engaged in, you know, a lot of what I'm doing now, I'm standing on the shoulders of that work. And so I acknowledge that as well. I acknowledge somebody like Emory Douglas, who has taught me the power of art connecting us to one another and how it can be in the service of movement work.
Yes, yes, yes. Woo! Okay, could you talk a little bit about how you two came to know each other? I think this is going to be really interesting, and I think we need to see that. How did this partnership happen? Because this has been a collaboration that's been going on for years. Could you talk a little bit about that? And like, I know it happened before Red Carpet, and then also maybe a little bit about the work together on Red Carpet. You could just kind of roll with that for a little while.
You want to maybe give a little background in terms of like how we came to the Smithsonian and how that project
okay. Well, definitely Kyle and I, being the rebel rousers that we are, we roll in the same circles. So immediately, of course, when I met Kyle, we actually were a part of the direct action in shutting down the Guggenheim Museum on May Day in 2015 or 14, was it? I think it was 2014. And so it was just so great too. And that's how I got to meet Kyle. I just thought he was just a badass. I was like, this is a badass. Like, he's just so inspiring. And he has been doing his artwork for decades, just so moving to me. And it's always been work from, for the people and for justice and for love. And so I was like, I actually tell Kyle all this all the time. When I met him, I'm like, I want to be his best friend. So I'm very honored to have Kyle as not only one of my best friends, but brother, like he's family to me.
I mean, like, you know, the interesting thing is I think we kind of talked about a lot of this or the same almost kind of conversation in the museum. So, you know, with that, the action that Moana was doing, her role in that action was singing. And, you know, just when you hear that voice, you fall in love with her and you fall in love with her collaborators. And then when we started working on this project for the Smithsonian, I think it was the first time we were doing a one-on-one kind of collaboration. And it really was just kind of this, I think it was a shared kind of experience where so much could go unsaid, where we didn't have to tire ourselves out explaining everything we were trying to bring to the process or to the piece, but we just kind of were able to just drop stuff into the project and the other person just understood because we were coming from the same place politically. Like we had been doing this work outside of art and outside of doing this piece for the show. So it really was not about trying to create a piece of artwork that was standing in for politics, as art is sometimes asked to do, but it was just really an extension of the movement work that we do outside of the art world or as artists. And so it was just this real shared experience that was a very unique kind of thing for the two of us, where we were just collaborating and like you know, where you don't have to explain death, every little thing that you want to do and add into the piece. And so, you know, that just kind of like led to this blossoming of, we were doing this piece inside the museum, which I think Moana would do a better job explaining. And then through working on that and kind of working out some of the logistics and the subject matter and content of that piece and what we were trying to say with it, we ended up developing this other piece, which is the Red Carpet. And that piece really was, you know, getting invited to the Smithsonian, I think for both of us was, you know, was a unique experience. It's not like we operate in that kind of, you know, playing field as artists. So it was an opportunity. And with that opportunity, you know, you want to come full. You don't want to leave part of yourself or part of what you do outside to be, you know, navigating or accepted in that space. And so we really wanted to address the history of the Smithsonian and as an institution, how it has propagated the history or the myth of European supremacy. And so that kind of there, you know, if we're going into a place like the Smithsonian, how do we unsettle some of that history?
So I want to like talk about this show a little bit to give a little bit more context about it for people who unfortunately did not have the experience of being at Crosslines, because I actually found it to be a very, I don't know, groundbreaking experience. And for me, and in some ways I feel weird calling it an exhibition because it was just this experience. So Crosslines was actually organized by several people. One in particular, who's a important player, is Adriel Luis, and many other people also work with him. And so this is a show experience that the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center put together. It came about in May 2016, a Memorial Day weekend. I came across it just kind of by chance. I was going to DC for something else and thought, oh, I'll go check this thing out. And it was phenomenal. Basically, it was like over 40 artists were just invited to come in and do their thing. And it was called, so Crosslines, a culture, what was it called? A culture lab.
Yep.
Yeah, a culture lab on intersectionality. And that was just a fierce experience. And so like Moana and Kyle, you were some of the artists that were there. And I actually don't think I actually saw you in person. I might have saw you with so many people. It was like really crowded. And I was so impressed. I was like, my God, the Smithsonian is doing something like this. It did not seem like something, I mean, no offense.
Yeah,
Smithsonian, but in general, they seem a little stuffy. So I was so impressed to see an experience where they were holding this thing like the Smithsonian Asia Pacific American Center, at least at the time. And I don't know, even now, I don't think they have a particular building, but I think they had, they were using that arts and industry building, and they invited artists to come in, and everybody had a little space and set up kind of whatever, you know, you could talk about this more, about set up their work in a space. And it was very experiential kind of thing. It wasn't just look at some art on the wall. It was really about being together and, you know, what intersectionality is about. And I don't know, it was just real fierce. But Moana, you talk about it, because I'm sure you have a lot of great insights as someone who was doing it.
Yeah, it was, I mean, definitely shout out to Adriel. It was groundbreaking. And, you know, I've never seen so many Black and brown artists in the Smithsonian before, queer artists, you know, Muslim artists, you know, just like, it was so groundbreaking. And young folks, you know what I'm saying? Just so excited.
You have to wait till you were like 80 or 90 before they get to the show.
It's so true. And it just was to be able to be in physical space with all these amazing thinkers and artists. And I was just, it was an amazing experience. And thank you so much, Adriel Lewis, for inviting us and having us, and just the vision that he had to have that back in 2016. So I love, LaTanya, that you chose the red carpet to be featured in the exhibit, because with Kyle, I want you to know that creating this red carpet for the Smithsonian was a breakthrough landmark moment for me as a person, as an artist, as an activist, as an educator. Kyle is so humble, y'all. Kyle has like this brilliance that is just like, what I love about Kyle is working with him. He was sharing with it. What he was that really the pinpointing to, and I'd like to shout out as this creative process that is so special and so empowering for me, because the red carpet, first of all, was not listed as one of the art, objects for the Smithsonian. So that in itself, I was like, who is this guy? Like, this guy just coming from somewhere, from the ancestors, And Kyle was like, also during this time, this was the year of Decolonize This Place being created, but before Decolonize was officially or whatever, because Decolonize This Place, right? It was long before created, before we were born, right? It was like, okay, but I digress. But Kyle was just like, hey Mo, like, let's create something that really acknowledges and honors our land, honors the spirit of the folks that, not only are still living, but died. He gave me an article of, and a picture of all the names of the Syrians that died when they were traveling to Turkey, Syrian refugees. And so that's how our conversation was started. And then he gave me a picture, a photograph of an artist who wrote all those names of the Syrian refugees on a piece of paper, laid down, and was placed. I'm not sure if it was placed in a government building, but people have to walk on those names in order to get from one place to the other. And to me, that metaphor, that life is, so many of us, including myself, I'll speak for myself. I not only am I walking on stolen land, but I am walking on the names and on the folks that have given their lives for me to be here, And so and at that time too, Kyle was reading, shout out to Eduardo Galeano, Veins of Latin America. We were just tying all these things with Tanya. It was just like, all right, let's do this. And anytime I had some sort of like, well, Kyle, what if we get in trouble? Like, what if, and Kyle just had to like reassure me, like, Juana, this is the art that we want to make, this is what we want to be known for, and also it is a red carpet to have. When people walk on this red carpet, they are honored. They are like, it is like a red carpet where it's like, we want everyone to be acknowledged, we want that acknowledgement. So, and so, yes, and, a part of the video that you saw earlier, it starts off with Kyle rolling out the red carpet into the entrance of the Smithsonian Arts and Industries building. That and activation was just so humbling to me. Adriel, I have to just give you all a funny story, was, later on during that day, after we rolled it out, Adriel was like, hey, Mona, can I talk to you for a moment? And I was like, oh, yeah. Immediately I was like, oh, is he going to be like, that needs to go, boo, that needs to go. And I even told Kyle, I was like, Kyle, Adriel wants to talk to me for a moment, and Kyle was just like, it's gonna be good, Mona, it's gonna be fine. And Adriel actually talked to both of us, LaTanya, on, in the Smithsonian, and he was like, oh my goodness, what you all did, that red carpet I love that. Thank you all. Thank you so. And then Kyle just looked at me, and Kyle says this all the time to me. Don't try to lie. You don't say this to me, Kyle. He always says, Juana, the work, it speaks for itself. And I'm just like, like he was just like, trust the work, like trust our intentions, trust, our creations, like, yeah. So
And you know, everything she said, just to add to that, just so we're really clear, two things. I think, you know, when we're talking about the Smithsonian and this project within the Smithsonian, we're really talking about the curator. And really, if it was, you know, the curator is not the institution. And so the curator was trying to fight against a lot of things within it to make the project and this show happen. So I just want to be really clear on that, that like, you know, we're saying the Smithsonian, so it's like the props go to Smithsonian, but really we're talking about the curator. And so I just want to be really clear on that, because without him doing that work and his colleagues pushing within their institution, you know, the institution of itself could care to, you know.
You know, it's
but
like,
I mean, before you go into it, I just wanted to add to what, well, I just wanted to be clear that like this red carpet was not sanctioned. We were not invited to do this red carpet. Moana had been invited to do a piece that we did inside the museum. And this was just something we thought was important for the work that we do. And like I was saying, trying to unsettle some of that history of the Smithsonian. And so we installed it without any, you know, the museum and the curators, nobody knew we were doing it. When we installed it, the guards were like, what are you doing? And we just said, we're setting up for the show. And they were like, cool. And the idea was really just like, before you come into this show and experience this really progressive artwork and artists in this, you know, what you described as kind of a first probably for the Smithsonian, we really wanted to acknowledge. And I think there's an acknowledgement in the carpet, but it's also a demand that we all have a responsibility to fight the legacies of settled colonialism. It's still happening. White supremacy, it's still happening. And the call on the carpet is demanding that we participate in that work. I just wanted to like add that to like Moana's beautiful description of the piece.
Yeah, and you know, I that building has like probably, I know there has 3 entrances, but it might have a 4th too. But anyway, at some point I had come in and went through the other doors and then went to something and came back to the show and was like, boom, like it went to the door that red carpet was on. And I was like, oh shit. And you know, I've thought about it for so long. That really, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff in that that experience. I feel like exhibition is really not an appropriate word for what this culture lab really is and what they're doing, what Adriel's been doing. And there's been multiple other iterations of the Culture Lab happening in other places. So it's really strong and important work. Yeah, so when I came across it, it's weird because like growing up as a kid and just throughout my life, I've been always this person that would walk around and look at things and be like, all of this shit is stolen land. Look at all of this land that we're on, you know, thousands, like millions of people died. Right, they were murdered. They've been killed, genocide, and then shoved and pushed off of this land. Right, I would think about that stuff all the time as a kid, and just throughout. Sometimes I would look across a parking lot and be like, "Look at all this shit! Like this is stolen." And so it's a weird thing in a way, but it's because I feel like it's something where I can look at things and be, you know, happy to be outside and see these beautiful landscapes that I'm in. I also see some really ugly ones sometimes too, as people have made things horrible. But to always kind of be living with that in the back of my head and in the front of my head, that this is, you know, what we're on is always these areas of massive death, actually, that we're on this land. And so when I walked across the red carpet, or when I came to it, I was like, wow. It was like really like I was meeting a cousin or something, someone that I'd never met in person, but knew them, and almost thought maybe I was making them up or something, like from a long time ago. So when I came across it, it really was a very striking kind of moment for me, and I just felt like it was an old friend, and that somebody else gets this shit, right? Somebody understands and is putting it right here and making us walk on it. And so it just felt very moving and powerful, and I could never forget. So for me, there was a lot of good stuff in there, but for me, it was like probably the best part of Cross Lines was red carpet.
I mean, even to just talk about that show, I think it's important to acknowledge that even within how great that show was and groundbreaking we're talking about, there were artists that had a real difficult time showing their work. There was an indigenous artist and a Muslim artist, and they both had to sign waivers of things they could and couldn't do from the Smithsonian legal department, to show an exhibition in that show. So I think it's important to contextualize the whole thing. It was great. There was a lot to really celebrate in the show, but there was also some really problematic things going into it that Moana and I were completely in the dark about what was happening. Everybody was kind of, you know, we didn't know each other going into the show. So we didn't know how to like organize or communicate with each other. And so it was really after we set up and started meeting people that we started hearing this background of, you know, some of the artists that really had a difficult time showing in that exhibition. So I just want to contextualize that a little bit too. As much as we want to celebrate the curators and the exhibition, there was a lot of difficulty for, you know, Indigenous and Muslim artists that were showing in that show.
Well, yeah, that I didn't know about that, but I'm really glad you brought it up because it gets to one of the other questions I have, which is feels like it's jumping ahead a little bit for me, but it doesn't really matter. I think we could do this. We can always just mix stuff up, but you know, so red carpet right now is like it's in this show. You were kind enough to agree to loan the piece and, you know, let it be in temporary spaces of joy and freedom. And so, you know, this exhibition is really based, as you know, if I'm just saying this for everybody else, it's kind of not based on, I actually feel like I shouldn't say that because I'm hoping the show is in dialogue with a conversation between Leanne Batasmasaki Simpson and Dion Brand that they were having about Leanne's book, as we have always done, Indigenous, what is it? I'll mess it up. Indigenous Freedom Through Radical Resistance. So, you know, Leanne and Dion were having this really beautiful conversation, and they're talking about co-resistance, what's possible between Indigenous and Black people fighting colonialism, fighting, you know, racism, and your work came to mind. And so, you know, I'm really happy that you were open to being in the show and working with me. But is this like the first time it's been in like as a sanctioned piece in an exhibition, like in a museum?
That's
Yes.
correct. Yeah, totally.
So what I want to talk about what that's like for you, and you know, working on this show for me is in many ways has been really wonderful and great, and I do feel like it's helping me grow and develop how I want to be as a curator, and thinking about, you know, what a decolonialist, abolitionist kind of praxis is, and what is possible in a museum. So I feel like there's a certain kind of thing I can do as a curator, but it doesn't mean it necessarily really works with a museum. And so I've been trying to figure that kind of stuff out, and that's just, you know, that's who I am, and I'm bringing it wherever I go. And so I'm really honored that you trust me, I hope, that you were, you know, open to letting it be in this show. And I know I shared the article with you, and so you had the experience of, you know, seeing what this conversation was. But yeah, please, like, let's talk about what does it mean for red carpet to now be in a museum, to be as a sanctioned object in a show. What are the, you know, great things about that, but what are also the real challenges of it?
Well, I have to acknowledge you, Tanya, you know, for being the curator that you are, and not only the curator, but the historian and the activist, the educator that you are, because you brought so much care to the red carpet and the dialogue around the red carpet, and how it, you know, you brought so much care on so many levels that I thank you. Because Kyle and I are very intentional about how we show the red carpet and where it should go, you know? So I loved how you invited us, how there was just so much love there. And so of course, Kyle and I were like, hell yeah, let's do this. Because yeah, it is not a traditional, you know, art object. It is not, you know, and Kyle and I are not, you know, artists that, you know, our priority is just to show our work in space and museums, you know, in the sense that, you know, we want to come on our terms. We want to share our work, specifically if it's sanctioned in a museum and in an established institution, such as the Museum of Contemporary Art Cleveland, we wanted it to be shown in a very, there's a sacredness to that, and I just give you just a straight up shout out, LaTanya, for bringing all that, for bringing that indigenous knowledge, to have Leanne, like, wow, like, and to have the exhibit based on the conversation, of women, of indigenous and Black women, to me is just like, hell yeah, I want to be a part of that. Because not only is that not seen in a very central way with intentionality and sacredness and love, it's just not a conversation, right, that happens all the time in museum, specifically in museum spaces. So that work, LaTanya, you did that work. So for us to come inside of that space that you created, I mean, that's an artist's dream, LaTanya. I wish every artist who is committed to bringing freedom and joy into the world, I wish they had this experience, because Kyle and I were just like, yeah! Like, just every part of it, LaTanya, you're like, want to Kyle this, this, and we've been so empowered, we've been so taken care of, and so therefore we're like, it's just been nothing but like such a complete happy experience to be working with you and having this the red carpet in Cleveland.
Yeah, and I would just add, in terms of like the piece in the show, I think, as a curator, it's a risk that you took in terms of this piece, and even with the, incorporating the Nat ministry in your piece, both of those works transgress. You engage the work. So they're transgressions in terms of like what traditionally is expected in the museum is like, you view and then you move on. And you are asking people to engage the work, to walk on it, and really kind of, interact with the work in the way that the work was intended to be interacted with. And that is a very, kind of a unique thing in terms of like museum spaces. Usually you're just there, you're viewing, you're getting a one-dimensional kind of view of history, and then you're like moving on. And so I think, those two pieces together, people really interacted with the whole show in a way that the article, that the work that the show is grounded in, was also connecting us to one another. And so, everything Moana said, it's been a humbling experience. I think, the work that you're doing at moCa Cleveland is an example of what a decolonized museum could look like, where there's no collection, there's no holdings that are like, no acquisitions that are stolen from like, cultures and people in other parts of the world. There's no guards. So you walk in, there's no security details. You're engaged with people that work at the museum that want to talk about the work with you. So it's an experience that you're invited into. This show, you have, 3 indigenous women, four indigenous women, a Black woman, a Black man, and a white man showing in an exhibition. That is a unique experience for a museum. The second show in the museum was a solo show by a woman artist. So, the whole museum is functioning in this way that like tells us like, this is what the museum could look like. And then you're bringing in work that's really connecting us to one another. And for me, that's really like the power of art. It's like, it's not a stand-in for politics. It's not standing in for the work that you need to do outside of your studio with your community, people on, boots on the ground. And that thing, it really is just like how we connect to one another. And so, I think there's also going to the show and experiencing the piece, there was also kind of a weirdness, just because the way we built the piece was, we refer to the piece as being activated in a way that we've used the piece in several actions in New York City. past the past the Smithsonian action, we did a New York Stands for Standing Rock action in Washington Square Park with it. We used it inside the Whitney Museum when we were doing weekly protests to have Warren Cantors, owner of Safari Land, thrown off the museum board for manufacturing tear gas that's being used right now in Minneapolis. Tear gas that was used in Ferguson, Palestine, Baltimore, at the Mexican-U.S. border, in Puerto Rico. These are our communities, these are our people. And so to see, so the activation of how this thing works is always with this movement type work. So to see it sitting in a space by itself, almost decontextualized, was kind of a jarring experience, I have to say, when I came into it, because it felt like it was really kind of like the energy and the spirit of the piece had been removed, so to speak, or it had been like, maybe it was put in a container and it was just kind of in waiting. But I think the programming that you've done around the show has also been really beautiful and empowering, inviting other artists and activists from the Cleveland area to come in and hold space and give them space to talk about the work they're doing in their communities. Bringing in artists and organizations that are working on the most minuscule budgets and giving them space to create audience and interact with this work was like empowering. And like for me on it, as an artist, that's what the work is, and that's what I'm doing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so many really great points. Thanks to both of you, for the compliments and for really the trust, because I actually feel like we've been in talking for a while, mostly through social media. And Kyle, I met once, I think, because I did a studio visit with you, Kyle, that was really fabulous. But Moana, I actually only just got to meet recently in January, but we've been talking through Instagram for like years and Facebook. So so thank you for taking that leap and trusting me and letting us put and then through me trusting the institution so that we could put the work in the show. And yeah, I understand how, what you're talking about. When you see it like in those installation pictures we just showed, where it's just empty, because this is a piece that has been part of all of these actions, right? That people come together, and that's what's really lovely and powerful to see all these people together and how people are sitting on the red carpet. In the video, later in that video, there's a moment, Moana, where you greet each person, you walk up to them, and there's this moment of greeting that happens. It's really lovely. So when you see it in moCa in those installation shots, it looked really lovely. So you can see the span of the floor cloth, but it looks kind of like lonely and sad in a way. And it's interesting because, I've been it's weird because I've been feeling, some ways I love being at home. Actually, I'm a person who likes to be at home. I like to be with all my shit. I like to be with my books, my art and stuff at home. But I love being at the museum because I want to be with the exhibition and I want to see people in the space. Actually, I want to watch how people interact and talk to the engagement guys who work in the space. They have all of this really deep knowledge of how people are interacting with things and the questions. So I really missed that through this period where we were closed, of course, for the public health measures. But it's interesting that I came across someone shared this piece with me, and it talks about museums, and it says that typically the museum is in quarantine. And I know we talked about this a little bit. And so that piece, when I got to it, I was like, wait a minute, that's interesting. And it was like, that's the regular experience of museums, is typically the objects are in quarantine where people are not allowed to touch it. There's always this distancing that happens. There's a sense of isolation. And so what I've loved about the show that we have is that every piece in there is actually interactive. And like you were saying, Kyle, with Trisha Hersey's really wonderful work, where she has this installation that people used before could actually lie down on the beds. But now we're probably not going to be able to do that anymore, right? Because of this virus. But yeah, this kind of immersive experience of really being on and being in, like engaging with, feeling the air, feeling our bodies in a space and being together. So our show is actually like transgressed a lot of that kind of conventional museum kind of structure and this idea about bodies and how we relate what art is, and our bodies being very separate from quote art. And so our show was breaking with that. And I think it's really wonderful to see people walk on red carpet, and sometimes the room is real empty, but there's one person in there, one or two people, and they're walking on that red carpet very intently. They're reading, and they just be walking real slow. And I love that. Every time I'll be sitting in there, try to sit quiet, try to just like, don't say anything, right? Because I want to watch them have that experience and have them question. So while often it's not a space where there's tons of people in there, there's moments where that happens, but actually just watching the one or two people walk on that carpet and taking the time to try to figure it out and understand it, that for me has been really beautiful. It's sad that I can't see it right now. And so I also feel like, you know, because of the measures, you know, the health measures, and those are real concerns, but also I think there's also a layer of fear in there too, that is not necessarily the virus, but there's fears about people coming together. And so there are like things that we're talking about now, I'm really kind of struggling with, because I feel like the show is going to be, it's just not the same show anymore at all. It's going to be different, you know, hopefully when we open in the summer. And I've been really kind of just thinking about that really hard, about how the show is about what Leanne says in the article, temporary spaces of joy and freedom. So the title is after the article. And she talks about how, you know, people who are dealing with oppression create these kind of spaces of joy and freedom to celebrate themselves, to like keep themselves going, to sustain. And so I feel like we had a moment and we created that for ourselves, and then we're challenged. Now here's another thing that's coming in, and it's kind of messing that up. But I guess, you know, because we're really creative people that are thriving, we will find ways to continue and create more spaces of joy and freedom, but they won't necessarily look or feel the same. They'll be different. But, you know, we're creative individuals.
You know, as you were talking, I just thought of this as a way to kind of think about the show at this moment and contextualize it in the idea of like Trisha's work, the nap ministry, and visualizing the whole show as napping. And maybe it's rejuvenating itself, and maybe it's doing something other than the art world and an art market tells it should be doing. And I think, you know, we come from a place that our art is not, like, the intention of our work isn't to be in a museum. So, you know, we navigated that space with you going into the show. You know, the piece isn't the work. The activation is the work. So to us, it really didn't matter what the piece was called, how it was installed, though those are important things. The work that the piece does, or what the piece does for us when it's activated, is the work. And so I think, like, just thinking when you were talking about the show in terms of, like, you know, it being quarantined, I just, like, I, you know, just really started kind of tuning into what Trish says about napping and capitalism and, you know, oppression and all this stuff. And I was like, you know, what if the show is just napping? And it's just resting in this moment so that it's, you know, when it's time, it can then reactivate itself and do the work that it's required to do. And really kind of like pushing against, like I was saying, what an art market or what an art system tells it should be doing. Just, you know, that just when you were, yeah.
That's great, Kyle. I just want to add to that is that, you know, I'm an artist not because I have work in a museum or in a gallery, right? And art is always around us, and we are art. And you know, coming from growing up in a Tongan household, you know, I knew I wanted to be an artist, you know, at the age of whatever, coming out of the womb. And my father, when I got accepted, you know, to NYU, my father was just like, all right, Moana, are you going to be you know, anyone could be an artist, but not anyone can be an artist of the people. And that to me was just so great because, you know, my training you know, sometimes I roll at my bio that's placed on websites, because what I really want to represent, what you just said, Kyle, is just like, yeah, we're representing these temporary spaces of joy and freedom that we create every single day, that are not seen, that maybe are not even heard by anyone, but this is what has kept us alive. And meaning, like, and I have to say the words, the words of decolonization, the words of solidarity, the words of uprising, the words of, because also, you know, one of the Hawaiian teachers that I met when these group of Hawaiians came to New York City for the Indigenous Forum at the United Nations, he was like, you know, you could speak your language. There's a difference between speaking your Indigenous language, right? Or speaking your Indigenous language to make a difference and to like uplift your community and to like, you know, deconstruct and decolonize, like, oh, you know, what is happening? What is the impact? What is the negative impact on folks? What is the positive impact on folks? And so that said, it's very important for me to say that being an artist for me is creating this work, but know that it's connected. It's always connected to the outer dialogue. It's always connected. Kyle and I may not be on the streets today in Minneapolis, but we want you to know, all our family out there, you know, we want you to know that this is our way of, red carpet was a way for us to be on the streets. It's a way for us to even throw stones, you know? It's also a way for us to have these types of conversations where not only I'm heard, but you're heard as well. That's what the intention is in the red carpet, for the red carpet and the work that we do. It's part of this bigger connection and world that, yo, we're asking for a lot, and damn straight we are. And LaTanya, I have to say that too, because you are a part of that. You are so willing to be like, all right, yeah, I'm asking for a lot too. Like, I'm gonna show this. You know, we didn't come to play. Like,
a lot has been taken from us. A lot has been taken from us. So,
you know, like, come on now. Like, there are still millions of mothers and children, you know, detained. You know what I'm saying? Like, we did not come to play. So this red carpet is asking for a lot. You are a comrade, a community person in that. And so yes, I love that red carpet. I love that it's resting now, you know, and you know, like what Trisha said, we're resting so that we could like rise up, you know? So like, yeah.
Yes, all of that. Damn, y'all are so good. Like, I wasn't putting that together right there, what you just, and that's what I really love with this show, you know, and I didn't know it was gonna work like this. And that's why sometimes I'll be like, my show, but I'm like, it's not my show, it's actually our show. I feel like every artist in the show, it's our show together because we've been making it, and I've been understanding it better through these kind of conversations. Like, well, this is unusual in a way because all other people are watching from afar. But, you know, just having conversations with you on the phone or just when we got together here, I would like learn more and more about the show so I could understand it. I feel like, yes, I was putting it together in a certain way, had this article or discussion, it was an article, started thinking about it, but it's really the show is happening when all of you come together, and I'm learning through you, and you all are like picking up information off of one another, like, you know, understanding stuff from Trisha and seeing that connection to red carpet, seeing that connection to Leanne's work, seeing that work connection to John's work. I mean, it's just all constantly been like, you know, there's a moment in, like, is that in the book? That's in the article. In her article, Leanne talks about, or in that discussion with Dionne Brennan, there's a moment where she says how her body is this like hub and it's connected to the earth and all of these things. It's this connection point of activities. And I was just like, rain, you know, boom, 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 boom. Like, yes, all of those things. And I see that with like red carpet to me I wrote a little essay about it, and I'm trying to put it together, working with Corey on our team to put together this film. So it's not done yet, but it's going to happen. And so, I mean, thinking about red carpet very much is perception, really. Like at first I was talking about it as a concept, but I'm like, it's actually not concept. It's really about perception. It's helping us to see. It helps you to just see what already is. And so I started thinking red carpet, you know, while I mourn not being able to see the beautiful object that it is actually all around me all the time. It's the land that we are on. Just like when I first came across it in DC, it was a thing that I already knew about, and now somebody had just put that in an object, but it was always with us, you know? So I've been thinking about red carpet is everywhere. It's everywhere we are. And just like art is everything. We are art, art is the world. I don't know, Kyle, you were gonna say something.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and it's also like in the context of the show, it's also, you know, as you walk to the end of it, it's how the coalition emerges and how we connect to each other, and we realize this work isn't about other people. This work is really about ourselves. You know, it's about getting out of the cages that society puts us in, whether we know we're in cages or not. And so it really is like realizing that all this shit is killing you as well. And some of us it's killing softly, or like Fred Moten says, and some of it it's brutal, like what happened to George Floyd. So, but we all realize that the work is for ourselves. And really this is how we all come in coalition together and push this shit forward.
Yes.
You know, and to stop some of this shit, you know?
Yeah, that's what's really wonderful about having red carpet in the show. It's in the center of the space. I think of it as a spine, and somebody I was talking to came in, a professor, Shayna Klein, I think from Kent State. She said, you know, I can't imagine the show without red carpet. The show it would not be what it is. And what it really did for me, that piece, what it did is it brings those discussions that the artists are having, the other artists, they're talking about co-resistance, but I feel like you can really see and experience that in red carpet. Like it makes it really clear about what it says, the text, and just what it is, like being on the floor. So I feel like that has really been important for bringing together what's really needed, co-resistance, building coalitions, building solidarities, building that through respect, because in general, we don't seem to be having a lot of that in this project, this geopolitical project called the United States. We don't have a lot of respect across various identities for one another, and just the knowledge, like what you're talking about, Moana, about the history, coming with that context, knowing that that's there. People often partly, okay, yeah, the schools are crap and they don't teach students things on purpose, so they won't know. So they will just kind of play into this power system. I know I'm talking a lot.
That's great.
Interviewing you. Sorry, I'm gonna stop now. Okay, say everything I just said.
Say whatever you need to say.
Speak it, Tanya. Come on. Talk about our school system.
Don't get shy on us.
Okay, I'm like, let me look at my questions over here.
Okay, wait. I just wanted to, if I can just add something, Moana. Maybe we can contextual. If you could just maybe just talking about what she was talking about in terms of the writing and the floor cloth, just maybe contextualize like what the pattern is, why the floor cloth, and then the idea of where the text originates from.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So there is a pattern on the bottom of the where it begins. It's called Manulua, and that is an ancient design from Tonga. So from a ngatu design. So the traditional art in Tonga called ngatu, and in other parts of the South Pacific, you know, it's called different words, but it is a cloth that is made out of the mulberry bark, and not just the mulberry bark, but the inner part of the mulberry bark. And you know, and ngatu is made, if you go to Tonga today, you will hear the beating of beating the bark into layers. So you hear this beating, and that is for us for us Tongans, not only the beating of the sustenance of our culture and our indigeneity, but also the beating, it's the heartbeat of our communities and our family. And everyone is a part, everyone is in the community makes Ngatu, because there's the process is just so, it is just like incredible process, from growing the mulberry trees, waiting for them, getting the bark, you know. And so that Manulua design is one of my favorite patterns. It is frigate birds, two frigate birds coming together, united. So that speaks to the connection of what I was speaking to earlier, of connecting to something bigger than ourselves, connecting to community. And so to have that on the red carpet, and then to have the red carpet on the North American indigenous land, on Turtle Island specifically, was just so important and so intentional. And the words, actually, shout out to Jackson, who is an indigenous woman from Turtle Island, and she created the words for a mic check that we did at the Brooklyn Museum, when we also kind of shut down the Brooklyn Museum too, okay?
You actually are pretty busy, you two.
What? Wait, what was that?
You're pretty busy, these groups you're in, y'all be busy. And red carpet is pretty busy too, so it's interesting it's taking a rest right now, but it's usually real busy.
I love that. Shout out to the Nat Ministry.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about music? I know, you're a musician, Moana. Could you talk about work and maybe in relationship with red carpet, but other things, I don't know, whatever?
Yeah, I just want to say that the music is so important part of it, right? So I just want to say that, and sound, and so the singing also, when the Tongan community is making the ngatu and making the beat, right, there's always singing. That it is made from singing, and just to also say, ngatu is what we're wrapped into ngatu, and we die, we're buried with ngatu, and so singing is just a part of that. And I know singing, that is just like, hello, that is a human, like from the beginning of time, cipher, so the activations that were at the Standing Rock, at the Smithsonian, Standing Rock direct action in Washington Square Park, the activation in Whitney Museum, it had to have song, and that to me is just that is a great connection, to the bigger picture of who we are. And so that's why when I came to Cleveland with Tanya, I had to sing the song, because these songs come from the words of thousands, hundreds of generations, and that to me is so important, to sing the songs of ancestors, to have their spirit and their intentions for me, really, like I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Like I am, seriously, like I know my great grandfather wasn't like grown in Tonga, in a village, in this country that God, what the hell is Tonga, that he didn't say like, I want my granddaughter to come to United States, but I know that through his prayers and his intentions were put in me to be here today, so that's why song is so important. So important.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was just, I could tell how important it was at the opening reception, and how what was it? We dreamt ourselves. What's that song?
We dreamt ourselves into freedom. Yes.
Ourselves into freedom. It was really, really beautiful. And I thought a lot about, like, obviously memory is essential, and just it seems like the music is bringing that memory and making it alive. And yeah, it was such a powerful, beautiful experience to have you here. And when you were here, Moana, I felt like I learned so much more about red carpet that I didn't really think about so much before it was here, before with you in the space. Because you, at one point when you were here, this is right before you arrived, Kyle, and I was in the exhibition space with Trisha and Moana, and Moana wanted us to walk on the red carpet, and we were taking photos of one another. And she said that red carpet's also a celebration. I was thinking very much about, like, the trauma and the pain of, and so that's, I think, for my just background, I've always been thinking very much about the land as being this land that's soaked in blood, genocide and the murders and the enslavement of people, just theft of generations, theft of lands. But you really made me think about the other part too, that we're still here and that we are thriving. They've been trying to kill us, right? They keep coming for us. But we keep living and we keep loving, and we are here together. And you talked about that, like, saying you wanted us to walk that red carpet and really, like, love that, and that for me was like boom, boom, boom. Again, my brain was exploding going, yes, I've been missing that part of the beautiful picture that's here, that we are still here.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to praise that our existence, that we are still here and we are alive. Especially as a person who does come from Tonga, that's always just like, oh, do you exist? Like, do you, that's my daily existence. Like, where are you from? Like, are you from this outer planet? And then also, right, just how we have been seen in museums, right? The history of those museums, specifically coming from the South Pacific, objects that were taken, talk about looting, right? Like, there's all this looting that happened in our homelands, taken and put in these museums. So for me to have the red carpet in a museum, I'm like, hell yeah, we're gonna celebrate. Like, hell yeah, like, I'm gonna be loud and I'm gonna be free in a museum to bring on the ancestors, to be like, no, we're not behind glass. No, nah, we're not no, you're gonna see me, and we're gonna sing these songs. That is what my ancestors' dreams were, that they wanted our lives to be so fulfilling and us to be seen and heard the way we want to be seen and heard, And so that's why I was like, work it, Trish, work it, Latanya, because because that's also what I want as an artist to show. Black and brown women loving who we are and our bodies and our voices and our existence of joy and freedom, like, yes, this is the history of genocide, and this is it too, that I will thrive. I will not just, like, be silent, and I will be vivid. So that's why I'm so, like, Latanya, Trish, Kyle, like, everyone, even you, Maury, shout out to you, Maury, who came, to be like, work that red carpet, They can't put us on the New York Times, working our bodies in beautiful ways. That's what I want to be known for as an artist, for my communities to be out there and seen in beautiful ways.
I love that. Yeah, this is a important thing to think about when we talk about political art, for instance, because often people don't think about the political art as a celebration of life. They see it as, oh, it's just these people critiquing stuff, it's just people protesting. I remember somebody said something to me about people like you who protest, and I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if we could talk a little bit more about political art in general. I mean, Kyle, you're sitting in front of some really amazing series of work. Could you talk a little bit about how that came about and what it is?
Oh yeah, so I'm sitting in my kitchen actually. Since I've been kind of sheltering in, I've kind of set up a workstation in my kitchen, so I can do kind of computer stuff and not have to be in my studio doing this kind of work. So the pieces behind me are some pieces I made like I think it was like 2005 or something like that, 2006. And they're images of Zapatista from Chiapas, Mexico. And they're screen prints on William Morris wallpaper. And William Morris is somebody I've been working on his work for probably the last 20 years as a way to talk about land in my work and to talk about colonialization. So that's basically what these pieces are behind me.
Yes. I love how you do this mashup, like taking the William Morris and putting that with, I mean, that's just wonderful.
Yeah, well, he was, in the times he was, an abolitionist who was calling for the abolition of prisons and things of that sort. He was, he advocated socialism. So there's a connection, but also the arts and crafts period was the time where people were also looking to the Middle East for inspiration in terms of textiles and patterns and things like that. So you find a lot of things like that, like pomegranates and anemone flowers and things like that, but poppies, things like that you also find in the Middle East. So early on, I started using his work around Palestine as a way to kind of slow people's thought process down about the work. I really try to engage them further in terms of like contextualizing Palestine in terms of land and struggle around land. And so, and then you realize these struggles are happening everywhere. And so, I've been using a lot of William Morris wallpaper patterns in current work that I do with Decolonize This Place. A lot of that work, just kind of contextualizing land and beauty and all this stuff. I think going back to what you guys were just speaking to and Moana was speaking to, there also is a celebration in this work. We're doing it to live and to build something that can look completely different than what we live in now or have lived in. And so, part of that is beauty. And so the William Morris is creating an aesthetic, kind of beauty to the work without aestheticizing the work and removing it from the politics of the work. I'm not trying to create a new narrative for the work. I'm trying to really just kind of house it in its own history and let the work and the images kind of speak for themselves in that way.
There you go again with that, let the work speak for itself. I love it.
Kyle says that.
Yes. I see someone had noted, this actually sounds really beautiful. We're not going to be able to do it, but she said it would be wonderful if we could bring the red carpet out to one of the protests, again, about putting the work in the street again, putting the red carpet on the streets. There's a protest that's going to be tomorrow here in Cleveland about, what's happening, what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis. And somebody mentioned that, and I was like,
you completely have our blessing.
Totally.
Maybe, I don't know, possibilities. I mean, bringing some beauty to the streets and, bringing that all together, that fierce energy and the beauty of it.
Whoever we need to speak to at the museum, that's going to stand in the way of like that. Just put us on the phone with them.
Okay, well, we got to keep talking.
Blessing to take that red carpet wherever you need that carpet to be.
Okay, this is like a good. I mean, I feel like we could talk forever, right? But I know we can't for real because it's dinner time, and we said this was gonna be about an hour. We've gone a little bit past that, but I think this is a good way to actually segue to a bientôt. We're not really over. We're gonna see each other again. Because just this thought, like red carpet might need to get out and get some work, helping bring us together. It might be a good way for us to do that.
On it.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I was like, I have more stuff to say, but gosh, like, damn now. So I want to ask you one last question. What like who inspires you? What keeps you going? Because we all need to keep going through this COVID-19, through all this freaking racism that we're dealing with. What keeps you individually going? I know it was probably a lot of the stuff we've already been saying, but just to close out, to bring some ideas together.
LaTanya, you inspire me. Kyle, you inspire me. All our families, our communities here in Utah and New York City and Palestine and Tonga, all the young people that are out on the streets, all the young people that are using their voices to bring awareness, educators, artists, liberators. Food inspires me. Go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say police stations on fire inspire me. I think that's a historical moment that's really waking people up. It shows us that the police are not invincible and that we have power. So that beyond any kind of, trying to make a piece of artwork, that's the kind of thing that keeps me going and inspires me. That's people that are demanding a better future, a world that has everybody's needs met. Seeing bricks pulled up from the paved street, that inspires me. The creativity that requires is, not matched by anything in a museum. So those are the kind of things that inspire me. And of course, the people on the ground, demanding justice. When we know what that history is, the answer to that demand.
Oh, shame.
So that, is connecting to that, and you just keep building and organizing.
Yes. You all are so wonderful, both of you. Thank you. I really always love talking with you. I can't wait till we talk again, because yes, museums are freaking not neutral. Hello. And
Cleveland.
Thank you for joining us on this, and thank you for all the beautiful, powerful kind of things you have shared. And it's going to keep us going. I think this is a moment where it is really hard and painful, but at the same time, it is inspiring to see so much energy and so many people fighting and coming together and thinking we are going to change this. We are not going to let this keep being. So
yeah, another generation shouldn't have to live through this.
Definitely. So
yes.
Thanks so much for having us, LaTanya. We love you.
Oh,
we love you, LaTanya. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Throwing up emojis if we were on Instagram right now. Thank you so much.
Blessings to everyone.
Stay safe. Stay strong.
Bye too.
Woo.